Hello, and welcome to the 31st episode of my Failed Franchises series. In this series, I look at defunct rail operators and see if they should be deemed as a failure. Today, we are looking at the final part of my two-part mini-series on South West Trains. We'll be looking at South West Trains from 2007 to 2017, and concluding overall on whether or not South West Trains can be deemed as a failure or a success. Do ensure you've watched part 1 from 1996 to 2007 before watching this video. And do like, subscribe, and consider becoming a channel or Patreon member if you enjoy. Thank you. We'll start with a recap. In the last episode, I looked at South West Trains from their formation in 1996 up until the 2007 franchise change, which was won by South West Trains' parent company, Stagecoach, on a deal until 2017. The new South Western franchise would formally incorporate the Island Line into South West Trains officially, whilst investing in longer trains. The franchise, as with the South West franchise, would cover most services out of Waterloo along the South West Main Line, towards destinations such as Woking, Basingstoke, Guildford, Portsmouth, Southampton, Salisbury, Exeter, Bournemouth and Weymouth, as well as covering key commuter routes such as the Hounslow Loop, services to Windsor, Neaton Riverside, Reading, Shepperton, Dorking, Chessington South and Alton. The franchise would also operate services to Lymington Pier from Brockenhurst and Romsey to Salisbury. South West Trains, in 2007, had a fleet of brand new Desiros, Class 450s and 444s, as well as the much older Class 455s. Class 170s and 159s ran diesel-only routes out towards Salisbury, Exeter and Bristol, whilst two Class 421s ran heritage-like shuttle services between Lymington Pier and Brockenhurst. The new franchise from 2007 would see all Class 458s be reactivated and re-enter service to cover for the retirement of the Class 442 Wessex Electrics units, after the 458s were retired in 2006 due to poor reliability, despite being only 6 years old. SWT also confirmed that these Juniper units would go through a full refresh internally, with new PRM-specified toilets, internal displays, CCTV and mechanical improvements to aid reliability. Elsewhere, the 9 Class 170s would be replaced by Class 158s transferred from First Transpennine Express, with some converted into free-carriage Class 159s. 11 two-car Class 158s would now join the operator, with the trains all being refurbished and brought into service by 2008. The new franchise began on the 4th of February 2007, running to the 20th of August 2017. Already in June, issues arose with South West Trains and its guards. A leaked memo report by The Times suggested that South West Trains was planning to introduce a new system, whereby guards would impose penalty fares on passengers who tried to buy tickets on board, with guards' performances being judged on the amount of money they collected in these penalties. The policy was dubbed to be both bad for passengers and guards, according to Richard Colby of The Guardian, and would be legally sketchy, going against the Conditions of Carriage and Penalty Fare Rules 2002. Hence, the new system was never implemented, but did not help South West Trains' relationship with passengers and unions alike. March 2008 saw the final Class 455s receive their internal refurbishment programme, which saw new 2+2 seating layouts, cycle storage, CCTV, new wheelchair spaces, and additional passenger information systems, as well as opening the doors further to enable faster boarding. The refurbishment cost £67 million, and saw the 91 4-car units, built from 1983 to 85, fully refurbished. Fleet Depot Manager Kate Marjorie Banks said the fleet was well received and would give passengers better journey experiences. Elsewhere in March, South West Trains drivers from Aslev confirmed that they had called for a 4-day strike over pay, rejecting a 4.5% pay offer, whilst planning to strike from March the 31st to April the 3rd. 73% of drivers voted for strike action, which occurred on the 4 days into April. Staff played a key role in 2009 too, as the economic situation caused by the credit crunch in 2008 had led to South West Trains being forced to lay off 480 staff in management, administration and other non-essential frontline staff. Stagecoach blamed reduced passenger growth and a challenging economic climate for the job losses, which would reduce the cost of operating services whilst maintaining the same level of service frequency. December 2009 also saw the final services to Plymouth, Paignton and Penzance run, whilst the 3 Class 73 rescue locos employed by South West Trains were also retired from service, with new ticket barriers installed at Waterloo and several other major stations on the South West Main Line to combat fare evasion. 2010 saw more trains retire. The last of the old slam door Class 421s were withdrawn in May 2010. The 2 units have been running services on the Brockenhurst to Lymington Pier shuttle route since South West Trains began operations, but would now be replaced by Class 158s and Class 450s, as the old slam door stock was reaching the end of their operational lifespans, with only 1 unit per day needed to operate the half-hourly frequency. November saw the DfT finally announce that Oyster card top-ups would be available at all South West Trains stations in the travel card zone areas from May 2011, with South West Trains being the last operator to do so. Smart card ticketing would also be extended in 2010 to cover Weymouth to Basingstoke, Staines to Wokingham and the Isle of Wight line. November 2010 saw bad news for South West Trains passengers, with 6.2% fare rises on SWT services announced for 2011. This rise would be 5 times greater than the 1.1% increase in 2010, while season ticket rises would be pegged at 5.8%. Some fares would be able to rise by 10.8% due to flex fares introduced, which would see 5% rises on some fares if operators reduced other fares by the same amount. Unions suggested that the rises were outrageous, with Gary Doherty, leader of the TSSA Rail Union, suggesting that fares would be likely to rise by 30% over the next 4 years, without any major service improvements or staff pay rises. December 2011 would see wholesale changes to the Class 458 fleet. To make up for a lack of capacity along the route, the Department for Transport, South West Trains and Porterbrook combined to develop plans to extend the Class 458s to 5 carriages by using older Class 460 centre coaches, which were formerly used on Gatwick Express services. The work would see the 458-0s converted to 458-5s, which would see them become 5 coaches and downgraded to 75 mile-an-hour running. The units would have new driving cabs built by Brush at Loughborough, which would see them now have gangways and new Voith couplers, the same as on the Desiros. The 3458s would also see 6 Class 460s completely rebuilt into Class 458s, which would also be 5 carriages, with, in total, 36 brand new trains converted, with a refurbishment of the units also undertaken. Infrastructure improvements also occurred on the Hounslow Loop, Weybridge via Staines and Windsor lines to extend platforms to accommodate 10-carriage trains, whilst one of the former platforms at Waterloo International Station would be reopened. The project would cost just £42 million and was far cheaper than buying new trains, despite being far more complicated. The trains would begin their conversion to 458-5s in 2013, with desired completion dates by 2016. This news came with new figures released, which showed that annual punctuality for South West Trains had reached 92.7%, whilst passenger satisfaction was at a record 85%. South West Trains announced that they would be investing a further £100 million into station facilities, including 2,000 additional car parking spaces, 2,500 cycle spaces, and additional ticket vending machines. May 2011, however, saw South West Trains get into hot water over sacking a staff member at Lymington for removing a trolley off a line. South West Trains suggested that Ian Folletto's actions were a serious safety breach, with Ian not checking with South West Trains or Network Rail before removing the trolley, whilst no CCTV footage existed of the trolley actually being present. Many passengers and residents said that Ian had always gone the extra mile for passengers, with some calling petitions for his reinstatement. Nonetheless, South West Trains stuck by their initial notion, and Ian remained a dismissed member of the team. Elsewhere, in June, passengers broke themselves out of trains across the network due to being stuck outside Waterloo after a signalling fault for several hours. Several passengers broke open windows and exited the trains to ensure that they weren't stuck overnight, leading to further delays after power had to be turned off to the tracks. More infrastructural issues hit the South West Main Line in 2012, with major power failures and signal failures in September and October, disrupting the weekday services, with one power failure leading to a complete signalling collapse across the whole Waterloo to Woking section of the South West Main Line, with services disrupted from Friday until midnight on Saturday the 13th of October 2012. March 2013 saw South West Trains and the Department for Transport attempt to extend the current franchise from 2017 to 2019, which would have been concluded by the government's franchise schedule release in October 2014, but was subsequently confirmed that talks had collapsed and the franchise would be re-tendered as normal. October saw the first 2 5-car Class 458-5s be delivered to South West Trains, slightly late, with this allowing more 458-0s to leave the company and be converted. In December, SWT announced proposals to its ticket office opening hours, with less people using ticket offices due to the rise of mobile ticketing, TVMs and Oyster cards. SWT would reduce ticket office opening times at 24 stations, including Berrylands, Strawberry Hill and Virginia Water. March 2014 saw more capacity come to South West Trains, with Class 456s entering service. The 24 2-car EMUs were transferred from Southern to South West Trains to run trains between Ascot and Guildford, allowing the release of the Class 450s. The units were eventually fully refurbished and used with Class 455s, allowing 10-car trains to run into Waterloo alongside the Class 458-5s. Speaking of the 458-5s, their first outing for South West Trains occurred in March 2014, also with the first 10-car service running in April, marking a boost in overall capacity on South West Trains. Despite this, SWT were concerned at the delays to the 458 upgrade, with the 60 extra carriages being over a year delayed already. To make up for this, Porterbrook agreed to fund the installation of Wi-Fi themselves, saving some money for South West Trains. In July, a lightning strike of all things caused serious delays to South West Train services. Lightning struck in the Surbiton area, which caused major delays to and from Waterloo, with signalling problems on the same day leading to more issues. Some passengers suggested that South West Trains had given up on the service for that day. September 2014 saw South West Trains announce plans to expand its fleet further by acquiring 30 new trains to make the most of platform extensions on the Waterloo to Reading line, which could now accommodate 10-carriage trains. Thus, South West Trains confirmed that the Class 707s would be used for services to Reading from 2017, with the first units due to be constructed in March 2016. 2015 saw the final Class 458-0 train run, with the last unit sent off for reconstruction to the 5-car Class 458-5 variant. Elsewhere, in December, South West Trains launched a new timetable, which saw the full introduction of the Class 458-5s, with 10,000 new seats per week into Waterloo. New trains were also added to boost frequencies on Reading and Hounslow Loop services, with more carriages on Weybridge trains. This came at a point of low customer satisfaction for South West Trains, whereby only 61% of passengers could get a seat or were satisfied at overcrowding on services. To their credit, SWT did acknowledge these difficulties and highlighted the close working relationship with the unions, with South West Trains promising guards would remain on services. However, South West Trains themselves were under threat. In February 2016, the DfT confirmed that Stagecoach and a First Group MTR joint venture had been shortlisted for the next South Western franchise. This meant that Stagecoach could indeed lose the next franchise. March saw confirmation that the old platforms at Waterloo International Station would be permanently reopened following an £800 million upgrade, which would see a new concourse installed and extensions to platforms 1 to 4. The new upgrade to platforms 19 to 24 would see a new concourse area for commuter trains, which would increase capacity at Waterloo by 30% during peak times, with the upgrade due to finish by 2019. 2016 also saw the first Class 707s begin testing, with service expected to commence by 2017. Despite these new trains shortly entering service, that did not mean that South West Trains' fleet was new. A report in December 2016 showed that the UK railways had average trains of at least 20 years old, with South West Trains having some of the older trains on the network, in the form of the Class 455s and 456s, displaced with the newer Desiro trains. South West Trains would soon, however, no longer have to worry about the 455s or 456s, or any trains for that matter, as in March 2017, the Department for Transport, surprisingly, awarded the next South Western franchise to First MTR, who would brand themselves as South Western Railway. First Group would now operate all services in London to the south west, with some fearing that First Group had a monopoly on transport in the west of England, operating SWR and GWR. Other criticisms came from MTR, the Hong Kong state-run operator, who could make a killing at the taxpayers' expense, with this leaving some worried due to MTR's links to the Chinese government. The new operator, SWR, would pay £2.6 billion in premiums to the government over the next 7 years, with £1.2 billion reinvested in the railway coming in the form of new trains to replace the 455s, 456s, 458s, and 707s, despite the 707s not even entering service yet. Anyway, back to South West Trains, who still had some services to run before the handover on the 20th of August 2017. On the 15th of August, a Class 456 derailed and, at 11 miles an hour, collided into some stationary wagons outside of Waterloo, causing some major delays. Eventually, a rail accident investigation report pointed to a set of misaligned points, which took the train into the stationary wagons. Luckily, no major injuries were recorded. 2 days later, on the 17th of August, the first Class 707s finally entered service, despite South West Railway announcing their replacement before ever coming into service. The 707s enjoyed a whopping 3 days of operations with South West Trains, before being transferred to South Western Railway. And with that, on the 20th of August 2017, 21 years of South West Trains operations ended, with the franchise handed over to South Western Railway. So, we should conclude on whether or not South West Trains can be deemed as a failure overall. They started off not so brilliantly, with service cuts and cancellations the norm, due to lack of drivers, whilst also ordering a fleet of trains, the 458s, which weren't actually needed nor reliable. However, the new Class 444 and 450 Desiros, new December 2004 timetable change, and resolvement of strikes meant South West Trains won the next franchise in 2007, where we started today's episode. From 2007, they refurbished all their stock, gained more Class 158 and 159s, improved capacity on the 458s by using spare Class 460 carriages, gained Class 456s to make more services, 10 coaches, and ordered Class 707s for running services. Despite this, they didn't win the 2017 franchise extension, and thus ceased to exist from August, replaced controversially by South Western Railway. So, are they a failure? Well, in my opinion, probably not. They replaced all slam door units with the single largest train order ever, whilst refurbishing all their original stock and using innovative techniques to improve capacity for the Class 458s. Although punctuality was sometimes low, I don't think they were a bad operator, and thus not a failure. They certainly were better than their replacement, South Western Railway, who we'll look at later. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching today's video. Do consider liking and subscribing. Special thanks to all my members and Patreon members, including First Class members Callum Martin Bell, Crispin McKee, and John Williams, as well as my Business Zone members Andrew Byrne, Anthony Harris, Anthony James Moore, ARK, Clive's Travel and Trains, Connor Grieg, Craig Mitchell 43, Dave CDF, Gordon Walker, JBNEL, JTecho, Lewis C21, That Transport Girl, The Average Teleporter, and Train Teen. You can get your name on this list from as little as £2.99 a month, and help me to make my videos, in return for special perks, such as early access to videos. I do appreciate it, thank you very much. Also, thanks to everyone who let me use their footage for today's video. You can find their channels in the description or pinned comment below. Once again, thanks for watching. Check out my Blue Sky, Twitter, Discord server and more in the links below, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.